Hi everyone, and in this video we will be covering chapter Deep Water of class 12 English. In this particular chapter we are going to be seeing how the author faces a misadventure in his childhood which leaves an indelible impression on his mind. Also, he makes a deliberate effort to shake off this terrifying memory and get over his phobia of water. So let's get started and we'll be going through the summary of this chapter. So, the author of the chapter is William Douglas. So, Douglas had decided to learn swimming. Now, he wanted to learn swimming when he was 10 or 11 years old. So, we are not sure about the exact age, but he was between 10 to 11 years old when he decided that he wanted to learn swimming. Now, where? So, there was a YMCA pool in Yakima which offered the ideal conditions for this purpose. This purpose, that is to learn the swimming. So, the YMCA pool which was there in Yakima, it offered perfect conditions and everything so that he could learn swimming. Besides this, his mother was against the option to swim in Yakima River. They are saying besides to learn the swimming in YMCA pool in Yakima, his mother, she was completely against that he could go and directly swim in the Yakima River. Why? Because it was infamous for drowning many. This Yakima River, because of this, when people used to go swimming, there were many incidents, many cases where people got drowned, right? And so, she did not wanted the author to go and swim there, so YMCA pool was perfect. The gentle gradient of the pool, in comparison, was a safer alternative. Now this Yakima River was itself very deep, but the pool had a gradient. Gentle gradient means it would go not directly steep like this, but gently it will go down very gently. So, for example, this is the surface of the pool, so it will be a gentle gradient which is going to be there, whereas this is a sharp fall which is very steep. So here in this pool you will see a gentle gradient which was a safer alternative for them instead of going to the Yakima River. Now Douglas was conscious to expose his thin legs as he walked into the pool. So the body perfections we are exposed to, right? So Douglas did not wanted to show his thin legs while walking up to the pool, but still he overcame pride and he went for swimming. However, he was averse to water from the beginning itself. He was scared of water from the beginning. Why? Because the reason rested in another episode when he was about 3 or 4 years old. Now, from the present, we are jumping into the past. In the present, he is either 10 or 11 years old. Now we'll go back to one of the memory when he is 3 or 4 years old. Again, exact age not specified. So what happens that here they are saying that he was averse to water. He was scared of water. He had built a phobia of water from the beginning. This beginning we are talking about this episode which we are going to see. What happens when he was 3 or 4 years old? At that time, his father had taken him to a beach in California. So there was a beach in California, and just as a good holiday, his father would take him to that beach. In spite of standing together with his father and hanging on to him, the waves knocked him down and swept over him. Right? So imagine a 3-4-year-old baby who should have been with his father, hang on to him. What happens? That the wave, it comes and it's just gently, the waves knocked him down, means it took him down, and the waves swept over the little Douglas. Okay, so the waves just swept over the little Douglas. It swept over him, it knocked him down. Important keywords that you should remember that should be used in your answers. So here, of course, a 3-4 child will be definitely frightened by this. And when he saw his father laughing at him, he got embarrassed. So this episode led to the feeling of aversion for water in Douglas. A question might come, so it's important to remember this incident as well when he was 3 or 4 years old. Because of all of these things, when he was at a holiday with his father and the waves knocked him and swept over him and he got extremely frightened and he saw his father laughing at him and he got embarrassed, all these little incidents led him to the feeling of aversion for water. Now coming back to the present, he goes to YMCA pool for learning swimming. So what happens? That the visit to the YMCA pool refreshed those unpleasant memories. So just imagine that 3-4-year-old who is now a 10 or 11-year-old kid, definitely when he will go to the pool for swimming, all the memories would get refreshed in his mind. But still, Douglas overcame all such childish apprehensions and resolved to learn swimming. Still, what happened that instead of running away from the pool, he overcomes his fear and overcomes all his childish apprehensions, and he decides to learn swimming. Now, he observed the other boys carefully and tried to learn by imitating them, observational learning. So what happens when he goes and he resolves his childhood apprehensions by learning swimming? What he does that he observes the other children carefully who are swimming, who are already there swimming. He observes them and then he tries to learn by imitating them. Imitating is copying them. And he did this twice or thrice on different days, and then he was just beginning to feel comfortable, and then a misadventure happens. So what was the misadventure? Let's see that. One day he reached the pool when no one was around. So maybe he was early to the day that there was no one. And so what happens that he starts to feel comfortable. He was not comfortable, it was just beginning to feel comfortable. So he could not go to the pool alone. He wanted people to be there. So instead of going and start practicing, he just decides that he's going to sit in the pool all by himself. So he waited for more people to join, and there was a big bully of a boy, and this boy was around 18 years old who came to him. He was well built and he was happened to reach there. Like a typical teenager, he picked up Douglas and he just threw him in the pool just for fun. For him it was fun, but then we see the later consequences, which was terrifying for Douglas. This was definitely going to be life-threatening for Douglas, as he did not know how to swim properly. Now, he was just learning now, but he did not know how to swim perfectly. So it was going to be life-threatening for him, and he was also afflicted by the fear of water. Sone pe suhaga. What followed was the most horrifying experience for this child, and most probably it was going to stay with him forever, this horrifying experience. He struggled to swim up and applied every rule which he could recall to save himself. So whatever he has learned, he still tried to show up and apply those rules which he has learned to save himself. So what happens, he planned to push himself to the surface and then paddle to the edge of the water. This was the plan that he made for himself. That he's going to push himself from the water so that he could come up and then he would float on the surface and then paddle to the edge of the pool. But contrary to this plan, he failed to pop out and rose slowly. He also struggled while trying to bring his legs to the paddle. So he was not able to paddle also even properly. He went up and down a couple of times and eventually he lost stamina as well as the will to struggle against drowning. Definitely when you are in water, you don't know how to swim, you'll be so tired that at the end you will just fail to struggle against. And he have swallowed a lot of water, so he became unconscious. And then on regaining consciousness, he found that he had been saved and everyone was trying to revive him. He walked home several hours later but was weak and trembling. This feeling was more because of terror than exhaustion. This feeling was not because he was trying to save himself multiple times and he was trying to battle himself. It was because of terror, fear that he had built in his mind. The phobia, it haunted him for years. And he could not enjoy any water sport without the old fear revisiting him. He began to resent this handicap, and one fine day in October, he decided to get an instructor from whom he could learn to swim. So there were days of practice under the guidance of his trainer. He would go, and with his full determination, he finally got Douglas out of the gripping clutches of fear. Then he continued to test his potentials as a swimmer well after his instructor had finished training, and on many occasions he would deliberately confront drowning and challenge water to try to scare him. He first went to Lake Wentworth in New Hampshire and swam 2 miles across the lake to Stamp Act Island. When in the middle of the lake, he put his face underwater and he would try to challenge his old fear. But he swam up because his fear was vanished. And after a few days, he would go to Warm Lake and swam across the back and shouting with joy at having conquered his fear. With every victory against the challenges posed by water, Douglas came out stronger. Many years later, as he recalled this misadventure, he drew a very important lesson of life. In death, there is peace. There is terror only in the fear of death, and how deep this line is. His friend Roosevelt, the US president, he was also of the opinion that all we have to fear is fear itself. Douglas had experienced both the sensation of dying and the terror that fear of it could produce. This strengthened his will to live, which made him a courageous and better person. This was all about the story and the summary of the chapter. I hope you're able to understand it. And one more thing that I would like to say, that this is just a one-shot revision wherein we are just skimming all through the contents so that we're able to revise just before going to an exam and we're able to refresh all the things that we have studied. That's it for this video. Thank you.